First question for Coach Calipari is in the center of the room. John.
John, you said all year, especially of late, you wanted these guys to be the best version of themselves. How close did they come to that tonight?
In that first half, we did a lot of good stuff. Now, again, we did it without Carl. First play of the game, he lowered his shoulder, and what are you doing? Because the guy bumped him. I mean, and we know how good Carl is, and he feels bad about how he played, but he's feeling great for his teammates. But he needs to have a presence. Now, what Dakari did was like, wow, you could play without Carl. Well, Dakari was really good today. Marcus Lee was good. But, again, I go back to Trey Lyles, and I keep telling everybody he's like an X factor for us because he is a 4 playing 3, but he's skills and, you know, creating shots for his team now, making shots around the basket, making free throws. You know, he was good.
If you have a question for Coach Calipari, please raise your hand. Microphone attendant will head your way. There's one all the way in the front in the left-hand section.
Paul Zeiss from the Post-Gazette. John, Bob said that he thought your 2010 team was more talented, but they didn't guard nearly as well as this team does. Do you agree with that?
Possibly. My 2010 team? Well, there was a lot of teams that he beat, but that team, we were not an execution team. That team was a team. We got together in September and we tried to figure it out. And I had a great run and great time with those kids, but we weren't an execution team, whether it be on defense or offense. We would break down, but we were so dominating in some other areas that we could get you. But we weren't a great shooting team, very streaky shooting team. This team is probably more consistently skilled as players, but come on now, John Wall and DeMarcus, they were in the All-Star game. I mean, Patrick Patterson, he's on the edge of the All-Star game. You know, you talk about Eric Bledsoe, even Darius Miller, DeAndre Liggins. I mean, we had a house, but we weren't an execution team. This team, being we have more veterans, I've coached them a couple years, a little more execution.
If you have a question for Coach Calipari, please raise your hand. There's one all the way on the left side toward the front.
John, back in the locker room, Tyler might be as kind of swaggy as what I've heard him all year. Did he really take some of the things that were said yesterday kind of personal? Because he said that you all wanted to win by 50 tonight if you could.
Well, that didn't come from me because that's not how I coach. What I keep coming back to my team, we've had teams talk before the game. I mean, someone going to come in and say we're going to lose? And they're going to say they're going to win. But what we say is at some point you got to step in the ring. We'll lift the rope. You got to come in here. And I don't want my team playing angry. I don't want them to be mean, nasty, hateful. I don't want that. It's not an us against the world. It is play with joy and love of the game and love of each other. That wins every time. The other stuff turns to fear. When it's not going good and you're mad and you're trying to elbow and all of a sudden you miss a shot, that your physiology is real close to fear. So they may have said we wanted to win by 50, but they won because they were focused on how they had to do it against this team, because we beat a really good team pretty good. But that's not indicative of the year they had.
If you have a question for Coach Calipari, please raise your hand. There's one in the center section, second from the last row.
John, Jerry Sullivan, Buffalo News. Notre Dame played a second half of offense tonight that was as amazing as your defensive first half. You think your players will relish the opportunity to now face a team that people will say might be the best offensive team in the country?
I don't know. I didn't get to see the game, obviously, but my staff came in and said, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "What happened?" They went bonkers. And I said, like how? Like every way you could go. Mike Bray and I are friends. I know how good a coach he is. Matter of fact, we went to Notre Dame, what was it, 2 years ago? 2 years ago, Mitch, where we got beat by 30? It may have been a 30-point rout, and they beat our brains in. So I know how good a coach he is, and I know how good their team is. Matter of fact, I think their football team rushed rushed the court, if I remember right. We ran out of there. Like, we saw them coming. We ran the other way.
In the front on the left side, please remember your name and media outlet.
Remember my name. Okay, it's Larry Vaught, Danville Advocate. Had to stop a minute. Could you just update a little bit on Aaron? He said back there that he's fine. He'll definitely play Saturday, that he popped his finger back in himself. It looked pretty gross.
It was awful. And then I kept looking like, is that his right hand or is that his left hand? I couldn't figure it out. And he said left. I said, you're good. Tape that thing up. And I put him back in. I just wanted him to take a shot or two, like to make sure he'd feel okay. But then I told him, don't you drive the ball. Don't go near the basket. And then I just took him out because we have a day and a half to get ready. But he's fine. He seems to be fine. It'll be hurting tomorrow, I imagine.
If you have a question for Coach Calipari, please raise your hand. And you can remember and state your name after you remember your name. Back to the middle, John.
John Clay Lexington earlier. John, I mean, there was so much talk about their press and how aggressive they were with the traps. What was the key to, I mean, it was never really was a factor. What was the key to that?
Well, you know, again, when you have to prepare to play the teams we play that press and trap and play physical, you have a little head start. And at the beginning of the year, it's one of the things that we'll say, let's make sure we're good against the press, that we have great spacing, that we understand what you're trying to do and how you're playing off of one another. But the other thing, an old friend of mine always says, you press a pressing team. You press a pressing team. And that's why we put in the diamond press, and that's why we did some of the stuff we did just to press them, to kind of go like, you're not going to be the aggressor, we're going to be the aggressor too.
We have time for one, maybe two more questions. There's one up in the front on the left.
Larry Vaught, Danville Advocate. John, how good was it to see get some offense from Dakari and Devin both again tonight?
No, it was terrific. I'm happy for them. I mean, Devin worked so hard, and it's been tough. He's 18 years old. He's probably one of the youngest freshmen in the country. He got on a run, and all of a sudden he's making shots. And if you remember the comment, it's like I'm shooting it in the ocean. And then his ocean got really small. And so now you're watching him, and I kept telling him, this whole team wants you to shoot the ball. He had to tighten it up. He got a little loose with his shot. And when you do that and you start missing, it goes the other way on you fast. But I thought today he was terrific, and he makes us, like, he spreads you out. Now all of a sudden you got he and Aaron and Andrew's making shots and Trey's making his pull-ups. All of a sudden you're a pretty balanced team.
Final question of the night, all the way to the front, all the way to the left.
Steve Jones from the Louisville Courier-Journal. Cal, can you kind of describe what you think Aaron's kind of competitive edge is that he stayed in after he got hurt and was battling against, those guys, and probably pretty motivated?
I think both he and his brother, they've been there. They dragged us last year to the championship game. There's no question it was those two, what they did. And it's not just Aaron making shots. It's all the other things they did on the court defensively, run-throughs, and those two dragged us. And now you're watching us, and I hate to tell you, those two are dragging us again. I thought Andrew was ridiculously good today. And his spirit is so good. He had run-throughs. He's defensive playmaking away from the ball. He's playing the ball. He's attacking. He's playing with speed. He's getting by people. I mean, I just am so proud of him and what he's doing. I mean, if there are better guards in the country, you got to show me who they are. I mean, I think they're both playing well. And then you have, when they back up a little bit, you got Tyler and Devin. And then I can put Tyler in there with him, which really relieves a lot of pressure from having to handle the ball.
Thank you, Coach.